Today we have Rattata, the archetypal early game rodent who would go on to establish an everlasting fame as both the starter of the early game rodent concept in every Pokemon region, as well as being a paramount noob catcher in competitive by virtue of its fear set. But was that all there was to this rodent to end all rodents? Or was Rattata an actual underrated threat in the Kanto region? Well, let's find out. As we mentioned, Rattata is the early gamest Pokemon in the history of early game Pokemon. It is the first Pokemon you can encounter alongside the equally famed Pidgey. Rattata starts with the unimpressive moveset of Tackle and Tail Whip, but quickly raises up to expectations by learning Quick Attack at level 7, and more importantly, Hyper Fang at 13, which, for this point in the game, is the furthest thing away from shabby. However, even a stab-based 85 power move does not render Rattata useful against the massive stone wall that is Brock, with its high defense normal resistant squad that even boasts counterplate to Tail Whip with Geodude's defense curls. Rattata cannot really do but pitiful damage before falling. It can try to Tail Whip the Onix down, but that is about as much as it's going to be able to achieve. Going forward to Route 3, the power of Hyper Fang starts to show against the random trainers in the cave, and something similar happens in Mount Moon as well. With this power, Rat makes sure to dismantle anything, save for the demon level 16 Raticate. Provided that it does not miss too often, even hikers get owned by Water Gun, which is a TM you get in Mount Moon. Speaking of Raticate, around the point it reaches Cerulean, Rattata will evolve into Eradicate by reaching level 20, which is quite early for a final form. If the Rat trainer manages to evolve it past this point, the rival will be quite easy, as the only thing somewhat on par with Rat is Pidgeotto, and even that does not like Hyper Fang that much. An unevolved Rat might still get 1 or 2 relevant kills, which is nice. The next relevant fight to Raticate would be Misty, which has an Ace Starmie, just 1 level higher than the Rat Evo level. Trying to sweep Misty with a level 21 Rat is very RNG prone due to missed chances, crit odds, and random AI, but the odds of achieving the sweep are, worth a shot. And even if the sweep does not happen, the Starmie will most likely be dented enough so that beating it will not be too hard. Raticate's next challenge will be on the SSN against Rival 3, where the biggest threat is none other than the rival's own Raticate, which should be underleveled. Rat has decent sweeping odds, which can be further bolstered by teaching it Body Slam through TM. Something similar can be said for Surge, though the move of choice is TM Dig, which can OHKO most of Surge's Pokemon. Rat can easily sweep anything, everything, but Raichu, which is strictly AI, and Raichu's crit odds depend. So far, every major fight, save for Brock, has been Rat either sweeping or coming pretty close to. In Rock Tunnel, Rat can go back to its Mount Moon routine of being good just by virtue of slamming anything with stab normal moves, and resorting to TM wizardry to beat the hikers, this time in the guise of Bubble Beam from Misty. Once at Celadon, the Rat and his squad will have to fight Erica, which, for once, will not be a sweep, except for massively great Gen 1 RNG support. Victory Bell's guaranteed crit, Razor Leaves, and Wraps are just vicious and will 1v1 the Rat. Vileplume is not as vicious but can still win if it uses Petal Dance right off the bat. At that point, Rat can just take revenge on either Tangela or the upcoming Giovanni fight if it has the Bubble Beam TM. More chances to shine will also be available against the Ghosts in Pokemon Tower, which fall very easily to dig, though the Marowak might be a tough nut to crack due to its respectable defense and not being 4 times weak to Bubble Beam. Upon getting the Flute and facing an arguably better normal type, The rat trainer can quickly get through Cycling Road and go to Fuchsia to face Koga, and despite having Dig, Raticate will struggle against the sheer defense behemoths that are the poison type Pokemon. Now, this is definitely helped by their moves not being the best, and by the fact that you can get the wheezing to click boom while you are underground, but it's a game of luck. Next up is Sabrina, which provides opportunity for Rat to smash the Kadabra, but Rat then has to pray Mime and Alakazam do not click Psychic, especially not a crit one. If it wants to do damage though, once again, if wind blows its way, it can kill most and maybe even all Pokemon, but it can just as well get L-ratioed by Mr. Mime. Now, if you are starting to notice Rat is getting worse, you would be right. But the reason Raticate gets worse is because it's supposed to. See, Raticate is designed to be a good Pokemon early game and then it falls off, as would future early game rodents like Zigzagoon and Bidoof, among others. Upon being caught, Rattata learns great moves in Quick Attack and Hyper Fang and evolves early, being likely one of the best Pokemon in its team in the early game. Once opponents start to get evolved Pokemon, Rat gets worse and worse and worse in comparison, until it gets overshadowed by them. Raticate is not a perfect Pokemon, but it fits a role consistently, which has strengths and weaknesses attached to it. Let's compare that to something like Pidgey, which is also not very good, not a strong Pokemon, but it has none of the early game presence of Rat. It evolves later than the starters into a very mid-second form, and then gets no interesting tools naturally. It is an early game Pokemon without early game charm, making it a bland early game Pokemon, especially compared to better iterations of the early birds such as Tailo, Starly, Toucannon, and definitely Nana Pheasant. Anyhow, that side note apart, Rat fares semi-decently against Blaine, beating up the weaker mons with Dig, but it can be owned easily by Rapidash or Arcanine. Something similar happens with Giovanni. All Pokemon are statistically better than it, and even though they have bad movesets, Thrash is all you really need to beat the Raticate up, though Rhydon is bad enough to beat with Bubble Beam. Against Elite Four, Rat is definitely not going to keep up with the behemoth that is Lorelei's team, which has Pokemon all better than Rat. Rat can get like one kill before falling to the Pokemon besting it. Even if one tries to teach it Thunderbolt, Rat's special is simply not good enough. Against Bruno, you can beat Onixes with water moves and Hitmonchan, which is not bad. But the biggest silver lining to Rat is definitely Agatha, which Dig provides Rat with a way of hitting 4 of 5 mons super effectively, and with the 30% accurate hypnosis, and the odds of the Ghost Mons using Dream Eater randomly, Rat will have the necessary turns to get 3 kills. Against Lance, Rat will not be on par with Gyarados, Dragonite, and definitely not the normal resisting Aerodactyl, but it can decently brawl with Dragonair, killing one or maybe both for its team. The champion fight will provide Rat with opportunities to beat Pidgeot 1v1, drown Rhydon, or play roulette against Alakazam in a high-risk, high-reward move, making Rat a semi-passable E4 mon if you are really wanting to fit it in. In Pokemon Yellow, all is the same, but a bit worse. Overall, as Blaine, Giovanni, the E4 and arguably Surge have better teams for it. It can find solace in the more favorable Erica fight, or as it always does, and the absolute blast it is to be used early in the game, with those beefy Hyper Fangs from the start. So, what do you think of Raticate in Red, Blue, and Yellow? Would you be an early game rodent enjoyer, or you think that there's not another rodent worth using in the game where Pikachu is the freaking mascot? Anyway, feel free to tell us in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Check these videos out. And as always, have a nice one.